Before now, mysteries had never been discussed or uncovered. But now, Contumacious Ant and Atreya are back for a second season. The MO Podcast.
Hello and welcome all into the MO Podcast. As usual, you're here with me, Contumacious Ant, and my lovely co-host,
Atreya.
And today we are going to be talking about true crime. Well, Atreya is. You're going to be doing the...
I'm doing the Black Dahlia, yeah.
The Black Dahlia, and I'm going to be talking about. It's not necessary. It should be criminal, but it's not necessarily a crime. It's the story of the Second Pacific Fleet.
I thought you were going to say like pirating videos or something. I mean, it's not. It should be criminal, but like, are we going to be talking about pirated videos right now?
Would you download a car?
I'm not even going to go into that IT crowd episode. Would you steal a policeman's hat and then poo in it and send it to his wife? It's such a good episode.
Oh God, yeah, it is. There's not really a bad episode, to be honest, but
there isn't a bad. It's amazing.
We could just probably digress on it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the Black Dahlia and the Second Pacific Fleet. Do you want to start off with the Elizabeth Short, as she was?
Yeah, okay. So, Elizabeth Short was 19. She was gorgeous. She had dyed black hair. She was an aspiring actress. She moved to LA to try and join the Hollywood scene. And she was quite promiscuous, let's say. She went on lots of dates. She kind of lived the high life. She darted from job to job. You know, she was a waitress. She was basically bunking in somebody's back room, like back storeroom kind of thing. She didn't really have... She was a bit of a flighty girl, and
I was gonna say that, a bit flaky, wasn't she?
Yeah. She just kind of, I think she just wanted to have fun. Really, one guy.
Girls just want to have fun.
Yeah, are we gonna do Cyndi Lauper right now? We should do Cyndi Lauper.
Has she done any true crimes? Well, I mean, against music, maybe.
Whoa! As if you just As if you just shit talked Cyndi Lauper. Cyndi Lauper's amazing. So she met this guy called Bob, of course. And
why not? Yeah, there's always a Bob or a John.
And he was quoted as saying, she knew I was bashful and liked to see my face turn crimson. She would say, we ought to go out dancing together. But she was a nice girl. Like that, I feel like that's as raunchy as you got in those days, wasn't it? It was. But
maybe she's showing a bit of ankle,
show a bit of ankle, and then do you want to go out dancing? We should go out dancing.
Oh, Elizabeth, please, no, I'm getting flustered. Oh.
And then there was another guy called Arnold Landers Sr. who said that she'd come into our drugstore frequently. She'd usually wear a two-piece beach costume, which left her midriff bare. Or she'd wear the black lacy things. Yeah, so she was a bit of a flirt, I think. So, okay, she rented a room in a Hollywood home behind the Florentine Gardens nightclub, and she worked there as a waitress. And she was quite friendly with the landlord of where she stayed, who was called Mark Hansen. And he owned the landlord, and he also owned cinemas. So she had been told by Mark that she was promised a role in a Florentine Gardens burlesque review. I mean...
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, so I'm not really sure whether or not that was a bit of a ruse.
Moulin Rouge, is that what we're talking about? Coulez-vous coucher avec moi, ce soir.
Yeah, so she was, I think the promises were made that weren't necessarily going to be kept. It was just a bit of a ruse. I think he proper fancied her, and she was pretty, until she opened her mouth and she had about 4 teeth. But she was gorgeous if she kept her mouth closed.
Yeah, no, she's a bonny girl.
She was, and so she was having a bit of an affair with a married man called Robert, aka.
Can we just stop there? How do you have a bit of an affair?
Well, because I think like she didn't.
Was she just showing ankle and stuff?
I think like she was just kind of like she wasn't. It wasn't an affair kind of thing where she saw him like every weekend. It was just kind of like
only.
as and when she fucking felt like it, you know. It's like, oh, Red. Yeah, I don't feel like it today. My ankles are all worn out, you know. I've been walking all day and showing them off in my two-piece beach costume.
I've been ogled so much. Oh, it's tiring.
I'm just exhausted. Yeah. So she was having an affair with this married guy. He was 25. He was called Robert, aka Red Manley, and he was a salesman. Ugh. And so the last place she was seen was at the Biltmore Hotel, which is kind of weird because we heard that the last place she was seen was the Cecile Hotel. Remember?
Yeah, I thought she was in the bar having a drink.
Yeah, so I mean, unless like the Cecile Hotel was called the Biltmore Hotel, or unless somebody's got seriously mixed up, she was last seen in the Biltmore Hotel, where she was meeting her sister who was visiting her. And she was wearing a black tailored suit and matching suede high heels, and she was using one of the telephones in the lobby. And then she left the hotel on foot, and she was last seen headed towards Olive Street, and she walked 5 minutes to the Crown Grill Cocktail Lounge, where she kind of looked around like she was supposed to be meeting somebody. And then she was never seen again. And on the morning, it was about 10 a.m. of the 15th of January 1947, a woman called Betty Berzinger was going for a walk, and she was going to get her shoes fixed. Actually, it's a very important job, getting shoes fixed.
Of course, yeah.
You know.
Remember the days.
I mean, they didn't have shoes on back then, so you couldn't just walk in and buy another pair of £5 shoes. You had to take care of the shoes you were wearing, you know. You had to get them healed and cobbled and all that kind of shit, you know.
Also got your key cut while you waited.
Exactly, right? I mean, multi-purpose.
Exactly, you know.
I mean, Betty was all over this. She was. So she was walking to get her shoes fixed, and she walked past a vacant lot in a southwest Los Angeles suburb, and she kind of looked over and she was like, oh, that's weird. It looks like a store mannequin there on the grass. So she walked over, and there was this what she thought was a mannequin in two separate parts, very pale, like a mannequin. The top half and bottom half were separated by about a foot, and the top half had its arms raised above its head with its elbows bent, and the bottom half had its legs spread like wide open. And she got closer and she was like, fuck me, that is not a mannequin, that is a dead girl. And so she called the police. Police arrived, and they discovered that it was Elizabeth Short, who they later decided to call the Black Dahlia, because back in the 40s, all murders had to have some kind of, you know, like romantic title, like the Black
know,
Dahlia.
it's like a Mills and Boone.
Isn't
really?
it? Yeah. I mean, they decided, because apparently there was a movie out called The Blue Dahlia. So they just, but I mean, I think they were really that inventive, to be honest. They were just like,
They've just copy and pasted.
Yeah, like, oh, she's got black hair. What about if we call her the Black Dahlia? Yeah. She's got black hair and she likes to wear black. Ooh, we've coined this one, lads. So it kind of stuck. And so the police were called to the scene, and the body, it had been cleanly severed at the waist. It had been completely drained of blood. It had been bathed. The eyes were kind of half open, and she had like lacerations, like rope burns at her wrists, her ankles, and her neck. And at the corners of her mouth, she had like a Joker smile cut into it. So it looked like she was smiling. And apparently, according to the University of Southern California's College of Education, the letters BD had been carved into her thigh. This is literally the only record that I have got of this. This is in this true crime book that I've got. I don't have any record of BD being carved into her at all anywhere else. There was another murder victim several months later that had BD written in lipstick on her belly. I don't think it was anything related to the Black Dahlia. I just think this is a complete misconception. So I don't necessarily think BD was carved into her anywhere, because she wasn't called the Black Dahlia until the newspapers got wind of this after the police had found her body.
Yeah, it wasn't something to go by, was it? It wasn't something she went by. She was known as Elizabeth Short. It was
yeah. So because her body had been washed so extensively and drained of blood, there wasn't really anything to go by. There was no fingerprints or anything. Whoever it was had covered their tracks really, really well. And the police did get a few letters, kind of like, when Jack the Ripper, there was letters sent in allegedly from Jack the Ripper.
Yeah.
There was that kind of thing about the Black Dahlia Avenger. And I'm inclined to think that it was absolute bullshit. The person who wrote the letters was absolutely not the killer. She was killed by a blow to the head. Clearly, this person had medical knowledge because of the way they severed her in the middle and then drained her body of blood. They had some kind of medical knowledge, and it was more like an artist portrayal than just an outright, just random murder. She also had several lacerations in her breasts, which kind of says to me somebody had women issues.
Yeah, it
You know
seems
what I mean?
a little bit Ed
She was-
Gein-ish.
Yeah, she was posed in a quite sexually degrading manner as well. So that kind of says to me like somebody really didn't like women or didn't think much of women, as opposed to don't really like women. And so apparently the police had a caller who rang them that said, "Don't try to find the short girl's murderer, because you won't." And I'm like, that could be anybody, right?
Indeed, yeah. Well,
A lot. And when I say a lot, I mean like 500 people voluntarily confessed to Elizabeth Short's murder. So a lot of people were clearly doing it for some sort of notoriety.
Recognition.
Yeah.
It's publicity and stuff.
Yeah,
which I've never understood really.
Yeah, I don't get that.
Even known serial killers do it. They kind of exaggerate how many they killed.
Yeah.
Don't they? They confess it when they're in prison. Oh yeah, I did that one as well.
Yeah, but the weird thing is, the difference with this one for me is that a lot of the serial killers that you get that want to be in the limelight. Like you got your Ted Bundys and your Jack the Rippers, and they want to be in the light. They want to be known. They want to be caught. Even when Ted Bundy was caught, he absolutely loved it. He was all over the courts, and I feel like the person who did this didn't have any intention of being caught, and that the letters were something that somebody else, a copycat or someone having a laugh, sent in. I just don't feel like the person who did this. So Elizabeth was found with an address book that was embossed with the name Mark Hansen. Now, Mark Hansen was, if you remember, he was her landlord for the room she was renting, and her boss at the place she was working. Now, Mark Hansen said which kind of made me laugh. He was like, "This isn't my address book." Oh, really? Okay, so there's another Mark Hansen that knows Elizabeth Short, and she was carrying his address book. That's weird.
Yeah, it's got your name on it. Yeah. You may as well front up and go, okay.
Like if it had like MH or something, fair enough, or like just Mark. But if it had Mark Hansen, I feel like there's not really a.
There's not much wiggle room, is there?
No,
really,
he could have just been like, "Yeah, that's my address book," but I had loads of them made, because I know a lot of people, and maybe she nicked one. Like I can't explain why she would have that, but I
give them out like business cards.
Or like she worked for me, and I had loads of them because I knew a lot of people. Maybe she took one. But
these are easier excuses to come up with and go, "I've never seen that in my life."
Yeah, he was like, "That's not mine." Oh, really? Is your name Mark Hansen? Yes. What could you please read out to me what this says on the front of the address book? It says Mark Hansen. Right.
How do we connect these two?
Yeah, it's a bit. He did a bit of a dumb. So the LAPD, they had about 150 men that were potential suspects, and Mark Hansen was one of them. Now, incidentally, Red Manley, the guy that she'd been dating, the married man, he was also a suspect, but he passed 2 polygraphs. So hey, guess what? He was freed. They were like, oh, he must be telling the truth because he can pass a polygraph test because they can't be completely.
And he was a salesman, was he?
Yeah, which is weird, right?
He's got the gift of the gab. And
He does.
hang on a minute,
Yeah.
1947, hadn't the polygraph just been invented around about this time? Because wasn't it used by Eliot Ness?
Yeah, right. So it's got to be completely on point. It has to be the apps. I mean, it's been tried and tested for at least 2.5 hours.
Exactly.
It's gotta be right. Yeah. So they let him go, and
He's just doing backdoor Kegels. That's how you beat them. Apparently.
yeah. So Red passed the test, and Mark Hansen, he was like, "Oh, the address book's not mine."
I hate anything even 1980s, anything pre-90s police. They're just Dixon and Doc Green. They're just so simple. Oh,
I know, right?
Couldn't have been this guy because he said he didn't do it, so he mustn't have done it because he told me. He'd tell me otherwise.
It's nuts, right? So, a lot of people, I don't know if you've seen the, I think it was on Sky or Sky Atlantic, it was a big deal. It was called I Am the Night. It was a TV show, and it was basically about this girl called Fauna Hodel, who... So, apparently the number one suspect nowadays is George Hodel, who was a cosmetic surgeon for the rich and famous in Hollywood.
Ah, yes.
And yeah, well, he also was undercover abortionist. And so that meant that he knew loads of dirty and dark secrets of the rich and famous. And apparently he had a lot of leverage. So a lot of people think it was George Hodel because he was he was massively corrupt, and he had tie-ins with the police force and the DA. Basically, he could get away with anything he wanted to because he had lots of friends in high places. And he had a daughter called Tamara, and she had a daughter called Fauna. And this TV show, I Am the Night, it tells a story of Fauna, who was his granddaughter, who didn't realise that she was George Hodel's daughter, and it turns out he'd raped her mother and all this kind of palaver. And the TV show indicates that he is the killer of the Black Dahlia. Now, this has never been proved, but there's a lot of TV shows that feature his house, and I would say he's the killer just on his fucking house alone because it's a travesty.
Didn't he have a secret room?
I don't know, because it was a bit of a weird house. It was that house. It was built like it was made out of Minecraft.
Yeah. I think
it was fucking awful.
BuzzFeed were
yes.
talked about it in their very, very early ones.
Yes,
and I'm pretty sure he had a secret room in his house, which obviously a secret room screams innocence straight away, doesn't it? I mean...
Yeah, oh yeah, he's a bit dodge. And apparently the FBI actually bugged his house because they were like, this is our guy. And they bugged his house, and apparently they recorded him saying something like, even if I did kill the Black Dahlia, who's going to find out because my secretary's dead? Which sounds out of context sounds really, really sus. But
even
I guess
in context, I mean, what happened to his secretary? I know
that
just leads on to other questions, and the FBI are going, Well, he said he did. He'd like, we can't prove it. I mean, obviously, we've just got him saying that he may have done it, but
I mean, he was sus enough for them to bug his house, so he was pretty sus. But he was proper cocky as well. But then at the same time, like, he got away with this murder that was so, like, I don't want to, like, downgrade a murder, but it was kind of artistic sort of thing. And he was really into this artist who was all about, like, basically his artistry was, it looked like mannequins, but it was women, and it was like women with dismembered limbs and shit like that. I mean, he was pretty dark, and if you can believe the story of, like, Fauna Hodel, and that, her granddad had raped her dad, raped her mum, and he he raped everybody. Jesus. And he was this horrible guy. Then yeah, I guess you can believe that he would be capable of something like this. But
surely there's enough, like, not. I mean, what's it called? It's not evidence, but it's all right. Not to bring him to trial, but there's enough to, like, bring him to the station and say, right, you're into this artist who does things like this. You're a backstreet abortionist.
Yeah. See, I think that the
anything
thing
you
was,
want to tell us?
Yeah, that's the thing, right? So I think that maybe there was enough to go, George, do you want to tell us something that you did that was maybe very bad? And George was like, do you maybe want me to tell your wife about that thing that you did that was very bad? Like, I feel like he had too much dirt on...
Too much information on people in places,
Yes, so he had a lot of leverage. But at the same time, I've seen I Am the Night, and I've seen the BuzzFeed videos, and I've seen all this stuff, and it's like, I don't know, just George Hodel was a dick. Don't get me wrong. He was a grade A fucking twat. But I don't fancy him for it, because the guy that did it seemed to like showmanship. And even if I don't think that it was him that sent the letters to the police at all, but he did like showmanship, which would have meant that he would have wanted to do it again.
Yeah.
And I know that, okay, so there was another one that, there was where is it? There was this woman that was Louise Springer, 2 years later, and she was a beauty shop worker, and she was found garroted in the back seat of her husband's car, 1 block away from where Elizabeth Short's remains were discovered. Okay. And everyone was like, oh, it's the same guy. Like, no,
that's completely different.
It's a completely different MO.
It's just because it's near something.
Yeah, exactly. So to me, and everyone was like, "Oh, it's the Black Dahlia killer." Like, no, it isn't. I don't pin them together at all. I feel like he killed one person, and that was it. So I feel like George Hodel was so up himself and loved himself so much. If it was him, he would have done it more than once. I feel like this was a one-off artistic kind of killing that they weren't brave enough to try a second time, and especially since. So whoever it was that did it did actually send Elizabeth Short's, like, driver's license and her social security card and all her kinds of ID. They did actually send them in to the police. So whoever sent them in clearly did kill her. That was the killer. But they wrote, right, and get this. So whoever it was wrote expect some souvenirs of Beth Short in the mail. That's a quote, right? But apparently Elizabeth Short was only known as Beth by her family.
Yeah, it's
nobody
a very
else.
Family-ish name, innit? Where you...
Yeah, so nobody else called her Beth except somebody from her family. So to me, for her to get to that state, it would have had to be somebody she trusted, somebody she knew. I'm inclined to think it was a member of her family, or linked to her in some way, that was somebody who would know her as Beth, and not Elizabeth Shaw or Liz or whatever. I would love for it to be George Hodel, but I just don't. I just don't fancy him for it at all.
Yeah, I think for me as well. I don't. I think he was just too much up his own arse, and he loved.
Yeah.
He loved having the power that he had, but I don't really think he'd use it in that kind of way.
Yeah.
Like murdering, and maybe murdering, but not being as extravagant as this killing was. I think he'd be, if something went wrong, he'd just dump it in a lake, or you know, I don't really think he wanted to attract any undue attention to himself, even though he had all this kind of stuff. I think he used it to be able to get away with what he could get away with, rather than being an outright murderer.
Yeah, definitely. It doesn't fit to be. I feel like he was so like big in Hollywood that if he was going to be a serial killer, he would want to do it more than once, and it just doesn't fit. He was a douchebag. Don't get me wrong, a grade A douchebag, but I don't think he was necessarily the specific murderer of this case.
No.
It had to be somebody close to her.
Yeah, and that's the thing as well, that she was just left on the side of the road, well, in the parking lot, in this kind of display, and it was never repeated. This kind of
that's exactly it.
The MO kind of thing. So that for me, that kind of points to someone. I don't want to say wanted to teach her a lesson, but maybe to make a point.
I agree.
And
somebody close to her, maybe it's a boyfriend that she cheated on, or she had an affair with, or you know.
Yeah.
I feel like it's that kind of deal. Like it's a jealousy kind of thing.
Yeah. I don't think it's. I think it was just kind of a one-off.
Yeah, I do.
And it was vengeance or making a statement rather than I love killing, so I'm going to do it this way.
Yeah, I feel like it was a kind of, oh, your pretty smile got you into this, so your pretty smile is what we're going to, you know, portray to the world. We're going to give her the Chelsea smile and see if that's how you like it. We're going to get your legs splayed because you're a whore kind of thing. I feel like it was definitely a vengeance, a jealous kind of thing. I don't think it's just some random dude who happened to be a surgeon who was just like, oh, I feel like doing something artistic. I feel like it had meaning.
Yeah. It meant something to the person that did it and to Elizabeth as well.
Yeah. But I mean, at the same time, it could have, you know, I know they had surgical knowledge, but I mean, a butcher technically has surgical knowledge in the terms of knowing where to sever somebody in half and drain the blood.
Yeah. I mean, I've done butchery, so I'm
not going to ask.
Yeah, well, yeah.
But you know what I mean? It's like
it's not a difficult thing to pick up.
Yeah,
and, especially when it's 1947, the war's just finished. I mean, all right, America wasn't affected that much by it, but it's still kind of, you still got the shockwaves of the Great Depression from 1928 and whatever. So if you're going to try and pick up work, if you're not a skilled professional, you're going to try and pick up work anywhere. So you could be working at the docks one day, the next day in a butcher's, and you learn the skills on the job, you know? So I think there was maybe a lot of people that kind of had this knowledge, just in the fact that they had to have this knowledge to put food on the table.
To survive, exactly. Yeah.
So
I agree.
It's not like, oh, well, he must have gone to medical school for 7 years. I don't think it was as much as that kind of thing back then.
Yeah.
As you'd look at it today and you'd go, well, no, this is definitely surgical strikes, Mm-hmm. Back then, it was just like, you know, well, working at Bob's Butchers.
I mean, I guess I don't really know because I've never tried it, but I guess if you cut somebody in half and then leave the top half of them, like, propped up in the bathtub, I'm going with gravity is going to pull all the blood out of them and drain them anyway. So,
to be honest with you, if you hit an artery, it's going to drain enough blood. And 7 pints of blood in a body?
yeah, it's not going to take very long,
that
right?
much, is it?
Yeah.
Really? And again, as I think we were talking about with the chupacabra, was she really drained of blood, or was it lividity? Did it just?
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure it was because she was cut in half. So,
I mean, that's a big factor, right?
Yeah,
that'll drain you.
Yeah, of course, yeah. And the way she was washed, they were making sure that they got rid of everything that they could do. So obviously she was in a bath or a shower to begin with because she was washed. So where's the blood gone? Down the drain. That's it's
I feel like it was somebody close to her that wasn't necessarily a surgeon. Somebody that just did it out of jealous kind of impulse, but that didn't. But somebody that cared about her because they didn't want to leave her on the street, just bludgeoned to death. They kind of wanted to make her death a spectacle.
Yeah. I mean, and they did, and her name still reverberates today as one of the probably the biggest unsolved murders.
Yeah.
I can't think of a one that rates up there, especially with all the kind of, I don't want to say prestige, but the infamy that brought with it. And I mean, it's unfortunate that she kind of was painted in the way she was after. All right, she wasn't squeaky clean, but she still died, and she was still a young kid.
She was more famous dead than she ever was alive. It's a sad thing.
Well, yeah, that's it. But I mean, maybe that's why she went to Hollywood, to become famous, and in a way she did. And we're still talking about Elizabeth Short, 47, 60 odd years after her death, or so she did achieve something.
She did. She achieved infamy. Yeah. Just not in the way she wanted.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, I don't think she'd be happy with it, but you gotta take what you're given, I suppose.
I don't know. I feel like I kind of would be okay with it. I'd be like, I was that girl who was cut in half with the Chelsea smile. That was me.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. I think that's a dream for a lot of people to die in suspicious circumstances and then have it made into a podcast. I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Secretly, I think that's what everybody wants.
For real. That's what I'm telling my ghost friends. Like, I'm like, oh, that girl that was cut in half, that was me. No, shush, calm down. I will sign autographs later. For real, no, it was me. I know. I mean, it did hurt a bit at the time, but I mean, it was worth it. Because, I'm famous now, and so.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't. Maybe that's how ghosts talk to each other. I don't know. So what are you talking about?
Yeah, Russians, you say? Yeah. So yeah. I'm going to talk about the Second Pacific Fleet, and this is one of the funniest, if not the funniest, stories about seamen that I've ever come across.
I love that word.
And I'm going to try and not to make it all into double entendres. And
you won't.
No, I'll try. But so this is basically about it's about the Russian and Japanese War, which I never knew happened. I didn't know this was a war, but it lasted from the 8th February 1904 to the 5th of September 1905, and it was all about dominance in the Far East. So Russia has Vladivostok, which is just above China on the Pacific Ocean, that's how vast Russia is. It stretches from the Baltic Sea, near enough the North Sea to the Pacific. It is a massive, vast place. And they wanted trading routes on the Pacific Ocean to try and obviously help with their economy, help with their push of world dominance or whatever they wanted to do. Now, Vladivostok was only... it's a port city, but the port was only operational during the summertime because during winter it was frozen. So the Russians did have Port Arthur, which was in the Liaodong province of China, which was 700 miles east of Beijing. And the Russians started trying to kind of fortify that and set up a base. And the Japanese were not happy about this. China wasn't the place that it is today. It was still kind of like provinces, and it wasn't the big communist place that it is today. It was more broken up. On the 8th of February, the Japanese had enough, and they decided to attack Port Arthur. This was an act of war, and a few days later, Russia declared war on Japan. And this is what started the Russian-Japanese War. Now, they did have a fleet there already, but the problem with Port Arthur is that because it was surrounded by hills, it was kind of easy. If you got the artillery on the hill, which the Japanese did, you could fire down onto Port Arthur and onto the ships. And
that's just smart.
Well, yeah, it's strategic, but Port Arthur was kind of much... It seemed like a good idea at the time, but then it just went badly for the Russians, to be honest.
First time for everything.
Yeah. So basically, the Tsar, Nicholas II, decided to send reinforcements from the Baltic fleet. Now, just geography. Baltic is on one side of Russia, and the Pacific is on the other side of Russia. Now, obviously, to get there, you've got to go all the way around Europe and then through the Suez Canal, which, as these were older ships and they were heavier ships, they weren't... Well, that was kind of the reason they weren't allowed, but we'll find out more of the reason why they weren't allowed to go through the Suez Canal. So they eventually had to go all the way around Africa, up through from past the Cape of Good Hope, and up past Indochina. So they were traversing the furthest possible way they could go, just to try and defend this one port, which, if they would have just given it up, there would not have been all this mess and the water. It's just anyway. But no.
I think a man thought of that.
Yeah, and I mean, especially because the Tsar thought Russia was, obviously, it's Mother Russia. It's this omnipresent thing. It's this, the motherland. Do you know, they were just in their own heads far too much with this, and they thought if we show might, then the Japanese will withdraw. And it never happened. So, the Second Pacific Fleet was brought together, and it was to set sail from Latvia, modern-day Latvia, on the 15th of October 1904. Now, there was 42 vessels, which included 11 battleships, 8 cruisers, and 9 destroyers. Now, that seems like a vast naval fleet, but a lot of these ships were refurbished ships, and...
Oh, no.
Yeah, like...
You never buy refurbished.
So there was one called the Kamchatka, which is one of the best ships ever, because it features a lot in the story. So the Kamchatka was a coal ship. It was a coal ship, basically. So she could carry half her own weight in coal or supplies. So she was refurbished out to be a supply ship. And the problem with this is that she could only go 12 knots, whereas the Aurora, which was a purpose-built battleship, could travel at 19 knots. So never have the phrase, you can only go as fast as your slowest man, has ever been truer in this story. And there was quite a few yachts in this armada, with guns just put on the side with absolutely no armour at all. They weren't built for purpose.
Oh God.
And it was it's just, and what you've got to remember is this was the days of steamer ships. These were coal ships. They weren't the battleships you can imagine today. So they were like ironclads. They were really awkward, slow going, cumbersome things as well.
Oh no.
And the crew were, I think the phrase is people of the land.
My garage?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, they came from internal Mother Russia. They came from inside Russia. They barely seen the sea or
Lord.
a school.
A school? They'd never
yeah.
seen a school. Oh, whoa.
So one officer said of the crew that they had were, one half of this lot needs to be taught everything because they know nothing. The other half need to learn everything because they have forgot it.
Wow.
Yeah. And
losing battle.
unfortunately, the officers weren't much better, to be honest with you, because a lot of them had been written up for insubordination, ignoring orders, or just plain sneaking off to get pissed on land.
Right kind of guys.
Yeah, it's great, like, to go out with, but if you want them fighting a war, you know.
True.
And the Rear Admiral, who was in charge of this, I'm not going to say the A-team, but this ragtag bunch, was Rear Admiral Zinovy Petrovich Rozhestvensky. And he was really good at what he did at the time. He wasn't corrupt, which was a major thing at the time, especially in the Navy's upper echelons. He wasn't really related to anyone within the royal palace or the aristocracy, so the men kind of bonded to him on that kind of score because he was one of them. And Kaiser Wilhelm II, who was the Tsar Nicholas's cousin, had lavish praise on him on many occasions. So he was seen to be one of the best that they had. But he had little quirks, let's say.
This will be good.
Yeah, his two senior officers he referred to their face as manure sack and a vast empty space.
Love him. I love him already.
He was prone to physically beating his subordinates when they messed up.
I mean, me and manure sack, I probably would as well.
Yeah, and he had a habit of running out from his command post and throwing binoculars at ships that disobeyed his orders or pissed him off.
I'll tell ya.
To such an extent that on this voyage, one of his chief of staff took a box of 50 binoculars with him because they knew he was just going to do it.
Maybe they should just give him pretend binoculars. You know, what they're just made out of like wood. They don't actually see anything. They're just basically 2 toilet rolls made of wood that are glued together, and he can just lob as many of them as he wants into the sea.
He got through quite a few of these by the end of the story. I mean, even before they set sail, the Oriel hospital ship, it sank in the harbour after a refit because the sheeting was removed from the hull. the person that removed the sheeting must have forgot that the sheeting's there to stop the corrosive effects of seawater on the actual hull. So they just fucked off and then came to work the next day and was like, there was a ship here yesterday. Where is it?
Oh, no. Did you take the... Oh, shit. I forgot that's what it was for. Bollocks.
Yeah, so, I mean, it you know, I mean, you think it can't get any worse, but it really, really does. The 15th of October, they set sail out of the harbour, and pretty much immediately the flagship hit shallow ground and it ran aground. An escorting cruiser lost its anchor and had to fish it back out. And a destroyer rammed into a battleship.
Oh, my lord.
So it
I
started
mean,
off.
what would you be like if you were on that ship? Like, Captain. Yes, what? The anchor's dropped off. Well, get your fucking fishing rod and get it back. Fuck, do I have to tell you everything? Fucking these guys.
I tell you, it just gets. So they've just entered into Danish. As they enter into Danish waters and are following the Danish coast, for some reason, a rumour starts spreading amongst the crew that there's a minefield that the Japanese have set up. Danish waters, remember. And there's Japanese torpedo boats everywhere. Right. Now, at the time, the Japanese torpedo boats were being built by the British, but they were being shipped out to Japan and the Japanese crew wasn't being shipped in. So unless they were kind of like part of the Philadelphia experiment, there's no way on earth they'd be in Danish waters. But this...
Hey, it's entirely likely.
Could be. You never know. These things happen. Well...
Yes.
But this rumour spread, and it spread to such an extent that the Rear Admiral ordered that no vessel of any kind would enter into the fleet's vicinity. So no ships could like float past them. The ships that they came across would have to go around the perimeter of the outside. So all of a sudden, just after this order is given out, the Kamchatka comes over the radio and says, we're being attacked by 8 Japanese torpedo boats. And this causes a panic throughout the crew, and they're all like, where are they? From what side are they coming? From all sides, we're surrounded. So they've got lookouts. No one else can see any of these Japanese torpedo boats that they're going on about. And then radio call comes over. Not, oh, we were wrong. It's like, oh, they've disappeared now.
How bad. We thought that it looked like something on the radar, but actually it was a little mark, like we scratched it off with our fingernail, and then there was nothing. So how bad.
This is one of the things. It just gets, they're everywhere. So I mean, obviously they're soldiers and they're sailors and they're in war, and obviously the tensions are heightened and everything. So maybe you do jump at shadows, but you're in Danish waters. You've not even like, I mean, I'm not going to say got out to sea, but you've not even seen the Atlantic yet. Come on now. Come on. So anyway, the crew calms down and they're all calm. And then all of a sudden, a fishing trawler appears, which they all open fire on. Because this order was given out that no vessel shall enter into the fleet, and it was trying to enter into the fleet, they all opened fire on it. Now, no, don't worry. Their aim was so abysmal that they didn't land one shot on this fishing ship.
Jimmy Rabbit was okay.
Yeah, exactly. And irony of irony, the Tsar had sent this fishing vessel to hook up to promote fucking Vice Admiral. Well, Rozavensky up to Vice Admiral. So
they were all like, fire now. And there was one guy at the back like, no, he's up here. No, stop fire. Oh, fuck. This is what there is shit shot.
Literally, I don't even think the fishing vessel knew it was under fire. Just because...
They were looking around like, those are nice fireworks.
Yeah, Jesus, right.
Happy to see you guys too. We're all friends here. Love you.
Yeah. They're giving us a warm welcome. They get through Danish waters relatively unscathed and then head into English waters. And this leads to the Dogger Bank incident. Now, it's not called that because there's a lot of people in a car park doing what them doggers do.
Outside a bank.
It's... Yeah, Jesus, yeah, that west. It's busy around our way. So this is a shallow fishing area, 60 miles off the east coast of England, and it's got loads of... It's plentiful with fish, and it's got cod and haddock. And as the second fleet came up on this area, you can just imagine the sight. They see these vessels with their lights on and their dangerous fishing nets, and they immediately think they're Japanese torpedo boats. So they, again, open fire on several English fishing vessels. And not to be outdone, they actually hit the fishing vessels and their own ships. 3 English fishermen died, which it's not funny, but 3 English fishermen died, and 2 Japanese sailors died.
These guys are the worst.
Important edit. I say Japanese here a lot, but I mean Russian, so apologies for me being a dumbass.
And because the Japanese ships were under fire, this sent the crew of the under fire ships into... I don't know how you describe it, but I'd have to say, like, just mentalism, because half the crew either donned life jackets and prepared to overboard into the North Sea, and the other half started to grab weapons, which included cutlasses, and try to fight off imaginary borders.
Oh, God.
This is like Sea of Thieves
I
on
was
crack.
going to say these guys are like, I've played Sea of Thieves. Pass me that cutlass. I'll take care of these guys. But there's nobody here, George. There is. Pass me that fucking cutlass. I'll take care of them.
So they haven't even got into warmer climates yet, which, as being in Russian-built vessels, they're not really built for that. But the Dogger Bank incident was a major incident, and the English almost entered into the war on the Japanese side. The Royal Navy's Channel Fleet was mustered.
Are you just cracking open a can of Stella there?
Shut up. Oh, I'm going to edit that out. Fucking hell. I thought I got away with it.
You didn't.
Important edit. I almost got away with it.
The Royal Navy's Channel Fleet was mustered. And just a little side note here, the Royal Navy's Channel Fleet is bigger than the whole Russian naval fleet.
Yeah.
So Lord Beresford, who was the Admiral of the Channel Fleet, wanted to have a fair fight, so he only pushed up 4 battleships and kept the rest in reserve just in case.
That's so British.
Exactly, just in case they got a lucky shot off.
It's a fair fight, boys. It's a fair fight. No. You 20 ships, you stay back. No, we're all about chivalry in this country. You stay back there, boys. We'll give them their fair shot.
It's just so bizarre. I mean, it was a major naval incident, and it could have... Today could be so much different if this would have happened, because there was also the Mediterranean fleet got mustered to Gibraltar as well, just in case this was the British outcry. It was so loud and incredulous. One national newspaper said, "It's almost inconceivable that any man calling themselves seaman, however frightened they might be, could spend 20 minutes bombarding a fleet of fishing boats without discovering the nature of their target." And it's true. I mean...
Oh, my God.
It wasn't hilarious. But diplomacy ensued, and France actually stood in, and because France were out for themselves, as they always are, the cheesy surrender monkeys.
I know, right?
They wanted France, Britain, and Russia to enter into a kind of a anti-German deterrent, and they didn't want anything to happen, so they kind of stepped in with the diplomacy, and there was a full apology from the Russian government and compensation of £60,000 to the fishermen's families. So that de-escalated, and to be honest with you, the admiral, I'm butchering his name, so I'm not going to say it. The admiral of the Russian fleet he did have to not have a court-martial, but he did have to go and explain himself about the incident. And to be fair to him, he kind of got rid of the officers that he didn't like and said it was their fault, and pushed them under the bush.
Fair play, right?
Which was quite good of him.
Yeah.
So
they were shit. They said we should do it. It was their fucking. I mean, like, I don't want to say anything, but I think that one probably stole stuff when he was little. He's proper well done.
He called you a wanker before we got in it. I mean, he
proper did, yeah. He said your wig was silly. I'm just saying. I mean, I personally love it, but he said that it was fucking silly. So
he said you don't even look Russian. Where's your bear at? That's what he was saying before. I was like, whoa, mate, I'm not getting involved. So they now head into warmer water, and they on the route to Tangiers in Morocco, where they were gonna dock for a while. The Kamchatka just up and disappeared, doing a little side quest on its own. And
I mean, it happens.
Yeah, it disappeared for several days, and when it appeared, it explained that it had come across 3 Japanese torpedo boats, and it had been fighting them and used 300 rounds.
Only 300?
Yeah, I mean, what they'd actually been fighting was a Swedish merchant ship, a German trawler, and a French schooner.
Oh, for God.
So they didn't want to be outdone by just starting war with the British. They wanted to take the whole of Europe into a naval war.
I mean, they started on Sweden, for God's sake. Sweden are just like, oh, you just don't. It's Sweden like, okay, there's a world war. Well, we're just gonna sit this one out because we're all neutral, and they were all like chaotic neutral fire.
Yeah, I don't care.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then literally after leaving anchor in Tangiers, one of the fleet's ships cut the communication cable, the telegraph cable that ran under the harbour, and cut off Tangiers from communication with Europe for 4 days.
This is Europe to Tangier. Can you hear us? Can you... Over?
Have they gone? Where? Have they having a day off?
Europe to Tangier. Over. Yep, we're not getting that, Tangier. Could you repeat? Over? Somebody's fucking with us, guys.
Is it a bank holiday, Tangier? Is that what you're telling us? You've all down tools.
Are you guys doing the crisp packet thing? Because it's really annoying if you are. Could you please just respond? Over. They totally do. Les, they're doing the crisp packet thing again. We've been through this with them. I'm fucking sick of this. These fucking jokers.
So during this point, they needed to refuel, but because of the time that this would take and the amount of distance that they had to cover, all the ships were ordered to take in double loads of coal. So what this actually meant was, rather than the coal just being in the hold, it was in storerooms, on the deck, in corridors,
in the beds, in people's socks,
just wherever
everywhere.
it can be. And the result of this was that the ships were covered in a fine layer of highly explosive coal dust.
Oh, God.
So if they would have come across a Japanese torpedo ship at this point, one shot is all they would have needed, and they would have all been blown to high heaven.
Somebody could have had a smoke and it would have gone wrong.
Exactly. That's it. But it gets better because as they headed further south and warmer climates, this fine dust turned into a thick tar when they breathed it in, and several sailors died from
Spontaneous combustion.
No, from chest and breathing issues.
That'd been more fun.
Yeah, I mean, there was a little bit of a blessing here because just shortly after this, they lost these sailors. They sailed into a storm, which was good because it washed this coal dust off them. But as soon as they got out of this storm, the Kamchatka came on comms and said, "Do you see torpedo boats?" No one did. So at this point, the Vice Admiral says to the Kamchatka, "You are now sailing at the head of the fleet," just because of the plain and simple reason that he didn't trust them of what they would do at all. And so he could probably throw more binoculars at them. He actually renamed a lot of the ships. He renamed the Kamchatka the Lecherous Slut.
What?
Yeah, and he had under his command were also the Slutty Old Geezer, the Polished Fidget, the Brainless Nihilist, and the Guard's Uniform Hanger.
Wait, how old is this guy? I feel like he was 12.
He was long in the tooth, but he'd seen his ass at this point. He was like, these guys are just... So they were coming round South Africa, and the Russian government received a telegraph from the British that there was actually fishing vessels just outside of Durban, so please don't shoot them. Which went down real well.
Oh, God.
They docked in Madagascar to refuel and to just... I don't know what they did, but while they were anchored in Madagascar, they received the news that Fort Arthur had been taken by the Japanese. Now, this was so they were basically sailing the point. They weren't back up now. They were actually kind of an invasion force, I suppose, if you were to say that. They were generally heading into war rather than being the cavalry coming over the hill kind of thing. That kind of knocked the crew's morale. So what they decided to do, the crew as a whole, they decided to pick up their morale. They'd get some pets from Madagascar, just some cuddly animals to
Zebras, lions,
to raise morale. I mean,
hippos.
so they got off and they brought back crocodiles, venomous snakes, and chameleons.
Best pets ever.
Yeah. The crocodile escaped and roamed around the bottom floors of the ship that it was on. One of the snakes bit an officer and he died when it was wrapped around a gun. Probably made the gun deadlier, in fairness, but
Yes.
the officer tried to get it off, but it bit him. And the chameleons, they couldn't find them to get rid of them, obviously, because...
Love it.
So, one of the crew got the Admiral a parrot, and no reason why, but it started to learn all his extensive vocabulary, which included a lot of Russian curse words. A lot of the animals escaped, and on some of the ships, the crew couldn't sleep because these animals wandered the hold at night looking for a snack. At this point, Rozhevsky and his chief of staff both fell ill. So there's no one actually in command of this fleet. So rather than doing anything, they just stayed in Madagascar. And because the crew were bored, they decided to go on land and take in the local atmosphere. And they came back with all the STDs they could find.
Oh, no.
And quite a lot of tropical diseases, to be honest.
I thought you were going to say zebras. I'm disappointed.
No, unfortunately. The animals didn't finish there. As they were pulling out of Madagascar a little bit later on, one of the supply ships, the cooler blew on it, and they had loads of spoiled meat. So what they did was they threw it overboard, and they were followed for hundreds of miles by sharks.
Sharks!
They're fucking geniuses, these guys.
Oh, man.
But while
It sounds like a fucking Monty Python movie.
it really didn't sound real, and I didn't believe it when I heard it, because I heard it from Mr. Balin, and it's an actual true account. I've got most of this information from Drakenfell, the YouTube channel, which is about naval history, and it's really, really well researched, and it's about a lot of old naval fights. And from defensism.com, and I didn't want to believe it, but this is actually true. So while they're in Madagascar, there were other officers that were part of this, and someone could have stood up and taken charge. But Madagascar at the time had a really good drug trade, so the officers just did that instead. They bought a consignment of cigarettes that were laced with opium, and they were fucked. So
What?
they didn't do anything else.
Wow.
Obviously, you may be thinking, but we've not heard from the Kamchatka for quite a while. Well, while anchored in Madagascar, while trying to honour one of their fallen comrades, either from an STD, a tropical disease, or a fucking crocodile bite, they fired off a round in salute. Unfortunately, it was a live round, and it hit the battleship Aurora. So they can actually...
Are you, sure this isn't a carry-on movie?
It's true, it's all documented. It's hilarious.
Oh my fucking God. What a bunch of idiots.
That isn't even the best bit. While they were running low on supplies in Madagascar, it's not really a temperate climate, I'd say. They received a supply ship, and instead of having anything that they could actually use, it turned up loaded with fur coats.
We heard you were in Madagascar and you might be chilly, so we sent you a bunch of fur coats.
It's true.
Bit nippy there. We thought big coats. I bet they haven't packed them, so we brought the big coats. Do you?
Yeah.
Because at 100 degrees, what you really want is fucking fur coats. Thanks, guys.
Can't even sell them onto the local population. I mean...
You sell them. They're very cooling. If you put them on, honestly, you'll feel so much cooler. Just try it. Try it. Do you feel cooler? Oh God, I can't even.
So, Rozhevsky, the admiral, got better, and he kind of, I don't know if he had a epiphany or whatever, but he thought, you know what, we need to try and train these gunners. So they had a gun training session, and they sent out a ship towing a barge behind it with a big target on it, and no one managed to hit the target, but they hit the ship towing the target quite a lot. So they sailed out of Madagascar, and they joined up with the third fleet, which was full of ships even worse. than the Second Fleet was full of, and the Admiral had been doing his utmost not to be in contact with them because he knew how bad this would be. And the reason why they caught up with them is because the third actually went through the Suez Canal, and they actually did what that Evergreen ship did and blocked it and had merchants backed up behind them because there was so many of them going through.
Wow.
Yeah, they created a backlog of merchant ships behind them. It's at this point where the Admiral went, you know what, I've seen it all, I've had enough. And he tendered his resignation, but Tsar Nicholas said, no, not happening. You're going to fight. And he did. They went on. There was nothing else he could do. He had to go into the fight with them, with the Japanese, and they were roundly beaten. Unfortunately, there was a lot of loss of life. But the night before the actual battle started, not to be outdone, the Second Fleet did want the last word in it, and the hospital ship, the Arola, had its lights on, which is because it's a hospital ship. It had its lights on, so other ships didn't attack it in the night, or enemy ships didn't attack it because it's an auxiliary ship, and it was approached by a Japanese vessel, and the Arola misidentified it as a Russian ship and radioed to it, "Oh, you must be lost. Just be careful. There's a lot of Russian ships around here." And gave away the position of all the Russian fleet.
Oh, God.
And the Japanese set sail immediately to pretty much wipe them out. In the Admiral's defense, I mean, not even his defense, because he was given a hard hand. He took full responsibility. Him and his officers, or his chief officers, took full responsibility for the debacle that it was. He said, "It's all on me. I'm the Admiral. I won't have any of these sailors hard done by. They were given a hard job and a thing to do." But this is just an unbelievable story, and if you've got this far through it, I know it's kind of hard to believe, but please just go and have a look at Drachenfell and defenseism.com, because the story's on there and it is all documented. There's just so many documents about it. I mean, the thing is, it's on Wikipedia. Wikipedia backs up quite a lot of this as well. Which it's just bizarre how this ragtag bunch of idiots just.
It's kind of scary that they trust these men with important jobs.
I know it's kind of the Rendlesham Forest kind of thing. These people,
yeah,
you kind of have to believe what they did. But if they would have been better shots, I think there would have been a lot more loss of life. To be honest with you, it's just.
And these people have the nerve to talk about my people with the tinfoil hats.
Yeah,
it's just fucking rude.
Yeah, it's. It's just so.
Look, at least we can shoot on our own people.
Well, yeah, and we've done that many times. Yes.
Yeah. Look.
There was just so many red flags in this. Even before they set sail. I mean, they were traversing half the world. Well, three quarters, because they went south and then east, and then. In coal ships and
this is not good seamanship. How would you grow up?
It's not. but definitely the well, I mean, I'm sure you've got funny stories about seamen, but all on you. That's what she said. Indeed, yeah, but yeah. So that I found that truly hilarious, and I did want to do another story, or I don't really like calling them stories, but another case today. But I literally was reading that this week and thought, no, I have to do this because I was giggling. I heard from 3 different instances. I heard it. And I giggled every time at the same points, kind of thing, and just thought, no, people need to know about this because this is the most.
Yeah, it's kind of sad that these people are trusted with important jobs.
Yeah. But yeah, without a shadow of a doubt. And they have important jobs and they still can't do them. Okay, I know 3 fishermen lost their life in the Dogger Bank incident, but at least sink all the fucking fishing ships. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Don't do a half-assed job of doing your job badly. You know?
Yeah, these were the people that were trying to stuff the square shape into the circle slot in primary school, right?
Yeah, the ones with like dripping noses and.
Yeah, the ones that they never figured out how to colour in the lines, even in like year 6. They were still colouring outside of the lines.
Is that a bad thing?
I mean, that shit irritated the fuck out of me. You know I'm not the only one.
Okay.
You know.
Just going to hide my colouring books.
Can't get him.
Yeah, so that's just the stories of today. That was the Black Dahlia and the Second Pacific Fleet. And next week, we are going to be talking about serial killers. Tried and tested, our old stomping ground. And who are you going to be talking about?
Okay, so I'm going to be talking about a local serial killer close to me. I mean, like, I don't think close. She doesn't live on my estate or anything.
I thought you meant your fucking mum or something. Like, Jesus Christ, what?
Oh, seriously, yeah, you don't want to get on the bad side of my mum. My stepdad barricaded himself into a room the day that she came back from the dentist and she'd mixed red wine with Novocaine. But,
I've heard the story.
No, I'm going to be talking about Mary Ann Cotton, who was a serial killer in the north of England in the 1800s. What are you going to be talking about?
I am going to be pronouncing this surname really badly, but I will be talking about the Iceman, who is, he is a serial killer because he killed multiple people, but Richard Kolensky.
I don't think I've heard of this guy.
He was a killer for the mafia, but he was, is he a contract killer or is he a serial killer?
I mean, I guess even if they're contract killers, if they kill more than one person or kill more than 3 people, they're a serial killer, right?
Yeah. So he did it just for the sheer thrill of doing it as well. So it wasn't a lot of them were paid jobs, but he just did it for the fun of it, and it's Richard Kolensky. So yeah, that's what we'll be talking about next week. But until then, thank you so much for joining us. I have been Consummation San.
And I have been Atreya.
And we shall see you all next week.
Podcast.
Bye.
The MO Podcast. The MO Podcast. The MO Podcast.